council members are elected through an at-large system, meaning the voting takes place citywide. But the white-to-black ratio across Jacksonville is about 4-to-1. Some say that makes it almost impossible for a black person to be elected. The ward system would divide the city into several districts. In this sample, you see 3 divisions. It's an alternative supporters say allow minorities a fair chance.
It may benefit the minority community in as much as it's a fair system, but there are benefits to the whole city of Jacksonville as well, because it is a more effective Republican representative type of government that we're talking about.
Mr. Jerome Willingham ran an unsuccessful bid for an at-large county commissioner seat. He says a law firm has been hired to represent minority interests, and he and other supporters are hoping the matter can be settled out of court. Beverly Mahone, WITN 7 News, Jacksonville.
A ward system is what is needed to keep the Justice Department from intervening.
I think at this point that we have taxation without representation in the city of Jacksonville.
That's the feeling of blacks who want Jacksonville to change the way their council is elected. At a public meeting last night, all of those there favored a ward system over simply increasing the number of members as had been suggested by the council. Blacks feel the current at-large system won't help in getting the first black on council elected because most people vote along racial lines.
We're talking about a system that has been put in place to disenfranchise minority voters, and we just like to correct that. The added benefit is that it is fair for everybody concerned, and we hope that we won't receive opposition simply because it happens to benefit black people also.
The Jacksonville Voting Rights Task Force, as they're called, already claims to have mapped out a 4-ward system, with one ward 58% black. Jacksonville wants to see if that's possible, so they're hiring a specialist to look at it.
Through the help of this demographer that the attorney wishes to use, we feel like we can answer those questions, and so when we do finally come up with a plan, that we'll have all that data available and not be guessing at what will or won't work.
Jacksonville now appears to be in a race. Come up with an acceptable plan and get Justice Department approval before the blacks bring suit against them. And the blacks say they only want corrective action taken for something that needed to be fixed years ago. Of hiring a professional to see if the city can be carved up to make it more fair for blacks to get on city council. The city would rather do this than end up with a court fight. A black has never been elected to the city council. Many feel their 18% population has been diluted with the current at-large system. Right now, all 4 council members and the mayor live on one side of Jacksonville.
I don't think that we would want all our congressmen to come from the western part of North Carolina. Neither do we want all our city council to come from the west side of 17.
The Jacksonville Voting Rights Task Force has already hired a Washington, D.C. law firm. Meeting Tuesday night, all agreed a council elected by wards is the best way to go. Also working on it is a special committee of the city to get an acceptable plan before it heads to court.
We're working diligently to try to have this in place and pre-cleared through the Justice Department in order for something to take place on an interim basis for the 1989 city elections, which would occur in November of this year.
Jacksonville now appears to be in a race. Come up with an acceptable plan and get Justice Department approval before the blacks bring suit against them.
Election system discriminates against minorities. The group would like to see city council members elected on a ward system rather than at large.
Black citizens. This conclusion is supported by extensive statistical data, including, but not limited to, the fact that no black has ever been elected to the city council here in Jacksonville.
Members of the task force say changing to wards or districts would not only be fair to minorities, but it would ensure equal representation throughout the city. A public hearing will be held tonight to give residents...
That is in, they don't want to relinquish that. That's just human nature. Are we saying that we must have a system that is fair to all the peoples of Jacksonville?
Jacksonville has been studying ways to make their election system more fair to blacks for over a year. And in fact, tonight we'll hear public comment on several proposals. But members of the task force feel council is leaning toward a split ward at-large system, while they favor strictly a 4-member ward system.
At this point, I am convinced that this is the best and final solution to the problem that we face here.
100%. The filing of the lawsuit does not surprise Jacksonville, who expected the legal action. And as far as 20 years of broken promises, the Jacksonville mayor says they are the first council to take up the black issue. Even with the filing of the lawsuit, Jacksonville Council will still hear tonight public comment on which option they should take, while no decision is expected for at least a couple of weeks. For the news leader in Jacksonville, I'm Bill Wilson.
It was filed, calling the way of election there unfair. The problem very apparent tonight. Not even the blacks agree on the best way to get blacks elected. A late report tonight for you from Bill Wilson.
Blacks, speaking for Jacksonville City Council, appear to be split on what type of council they'd like. A 4-ward system or a combination ward at-large system with 6 members. Those who filed suit against the city favor the 4-ward setup.
I'm still friends with members of the council, and I want them to know that. But business is business, and we've been waiting 28 years to have a black elected, and we just can't wait through another year.
Those in the Voting Rights Task Force appear to make up about half of the blacks present. Others favor the split system that's being endorsed by several council members.
We felt that if we use ward system, there are going to be some areas left out. Looking at the 4-2-1 system, we see that I'm included in that system that would have a representative.
Blacks were not the only ones who spoke at the public hearing.
And I'm really upset and disturbed by the whole thing as far as what came out today on this suit. And I'm really interested in why the suit was brought when it was really publicly stated that what we were trying to accomplish was to give you what you wanted.
Earlier today, even though the possibility of a federal lawsuit is still very real. The latest tonight from our Bill Wilson.
The 4 councilmen who are now elected by the whole city have decided to scrap that plan. Instead, carve the city into 4 districts and elect 2 more council members at large. The vote, even though 2 weeks ago a group of blacks filed a federal lawsuit endorsing a plan for just 4 wards. A group of blacks calling themselves the Voting Rights Task Force says a 4-ward system would give minorities 1/5 representation instead of 1/7. Not surprised by council's vote, they will continue with their lawsuit.
We feel that a deaf ear has been turned to the black community. All along, we were trying to get the message out there that the black community felt very strongly about putting in place a system that was going to be the final solution to this problem.
Even without the lawsuit, a change in Jacksonville's election system would have to be pre-cleared by the U.S. Justice Department. And now that there is litigation, some are wondering whether the whole thing can be worked out.
The current method of elections, which is 5 seats elected at large, should be changed. They decided to go with the 4 ward-type seats and 2 at-large seats. A couple of weeks ago, blacks filed suit. They wanted 4 ward-type seats only. Now, the at-large method had to be changed because minorities complained there was no way their representatives could get elected. Changed to a ward system. Now that it is, he wants to be on the city council.
I have some particular concerns, and I'm concerned about the residential communities and the quality of life and the standard of services that the residential communities are experiencing. And
His leader, his primary concerns are rezoning and development downtown.
I'm concerned about the residential communities and the quality of life and the standard of services that the residential communities are experiencing. And I think zoning has a lot to do with that. I'm concerned about downtown redevelopment, but I think that if the residential communities are improved, then that will have a trickle-down effect, if you will.
Ward number 1, newcomer Jerome Willingham defeated Joe McGuire Booker. I'd have to go.
The Voting Rights Task Force sued the city over its at-large election system. In reviewing the case, a federal judge ruled in favor of the group and ordered the city to pay their attorneys legal fees.
The victory that we have gained today, or when the judge signed his order, will benefit generations to come. And it's more than just a personal victory. It's a victory for the Constitution.
The city has changed its at-large system with the creation of 4 wards, and ironically, 2 newly elected council members are also members of the task force.
Sued against the city in 1989 and then dropped it before this year's election because the city agreed to a ward system. Now a judge has ruled they were right. Jerome Willingham was elected to the city council under the new system.
I feel even more satisfied than I did when I was successful in the election. And that is because the victory that we have gained today, or when the judge signed his order, will benefit generations to come.
The court decision also means the city might have to pay the task force's legal expenses, perhaps as much as $170,000.
We thought that there would be a higher voter turnout, but I believe in Ward 1 we had a higher percentage than any other ward, so I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the supporters and the support that I got in Ward 1.